Good morning, agents, and welcome to another daily episode of Targeted Loot today for Wednesday, December 23rd. In this series, we cover a lot. We got the Targeted Loot map, DZ exclusives you could farm for, highlights from the weekly vendor resets, and of course, build and farming suggestions as well. I'm Shadow Gaming, and if you enjoyed this video, consider pressing the subscribe and like buttons below. And remember to comment below as well if you have any questions whatsoever. Otherwise, let's get this video started. Alright, agents, so starting off with the dark zones and of course the vendor reset highlights, which will be in the big bottom left overlay popping up right now. One thing that I really think I overshadowed was over in DZ East. There is a claws out holster at the DZ East vendor that's worth purchasing. So that kind of negates what we got over here at the Wyvernware Targeted Loot. You could farm for it, but I really just recommend buying it at the DZ East vendor for 152 DZ resources. Next up, in the other DZs, I'm just not going to mention them really, I think, because neither of them have a Dark Zone exclusive, and in this video series, I only cover what Dark Zone exclusives you could farm for, and Petrov does not have one, and neither does Rigger. So now let's move on to the North Side Targeted Loot highlights. Alright, agents, now we're over here on the North Side Targeted Loot highlights, and really, there's nothing I really recommend over here either. I mean, you do have Foundry Bulwark and Manning National Zoo, but always keep in mind that the chest and backpack are Iron Horse Raid exclusive items, so you're not going to be able to farm for the chest and backpack. It is a really well put together tank build if you want to use 4 pieces, even without the chest and backpack. But I'd really recommend at least having the chest or backpack, but it still works as 4 pieces as a really well tank build that you can put together for legendary and raids as well. As far as the rest of the targeted loot, I really don't like to mention them. I mean, pistols, just keep in mind the card custom pistol is a DZ exclusive. You cannot farm for it outside of the dark zone. And Richter and Kaiser is something I really never, recommend. I never use it, so I can't recommend it. Let's just move on to the west side now. Alright, agents, over here on the west side, Targeted Loot highlights, starting off with gear sets. We got Eclipse Protocol at Lincoln Memorial. Now, Eclipse Protocol, there's several different ways to use this nowadays, especially with that new Scorpio shotgun. Now, first off, my favorite fire damage build would be 4 pieces of Eclipse Protocol, the Imperial Dynasty holster, and 1 piece of Golan gear, which will be a build video that I'll put in the top right card now. Otherwise, you can utilize this with the Scorpio shotgun and usually, like the Ridgeway's Pride chest piece. You could also use that with Ongoing Directive, to make some sort of kind of DPS status effect build, but I haven't really messed around with it too much. Next up, we got Aces and Eights at Tidal Base and Stronghold. Great headshot damage gear set. Mix 3 pieces of Aces and Eights with 2 pieces of Heralda Holding, 1 with Vigilance or Composure on the backpack, and the Chainkiller chest piece with Perfect Headhunter running the Mantis exotic MMR. Next up, we got Tip of the Spirit Bank HQ. Like I said, I still haven't tried this out yet. I've been really messing around with the Golden Bullet Global Directive, which I really think that you guys should do as well. And real quick, I'm going to show you guys that. You got a global event shop, which I highly recommend checking out these named item caches because they will drop any named item, even if it's a Dark Zone exclusive. And the Golden Bullet is absolutely amazing, right? I mean, it just gives you insane rate of fire, increased damage, increased reloading. You just shred through everything, even with all the directives on with my Hunter's Fury build that I'll put in the top right card now. I'm just absolutely obliterating everything in my sight. I go to control point and wipe out everything in sight. So I highly recommend you guys do this. And when you get the stars, go to this global event shop by the White House and grab whatever you need or want, even an exotic cache. It's very easy to get. Now back to normal targeted loot, we got Hunter's Fury at West End, an SMG and shotgun damage build, and I already put, another build in the top right card, so I'll put another one as well. That, of course, being my alternative Hunter's Fury build. That is 4 pieces of Hunter's Fury, the Memento backpack, and a Circle of Chest with Obliterate or Intimidate on it. And I always roll 3 armor cores for weapon damage cores and that 1 skill tier from the Memento backpack. Of course, I run that with the Scorpio shotgun and the Dark Winter. Both of those are amazing weapons to run with that. Shreds through content, even without Golden Bullet, but especially with Golden Bullet Global Directive. And last gear set I see is Ongoing Directive at Atomic Event Center. There's 2 Ongoing Directive builds that are going around right now that are really worth using. That's going to be 4 pieces of Ongoing Directive, the Ridgeway's Pride chest piece, and the Anarchist Cookbook with Perfect Wicked, or just a backpack with Perfect Wicked on it. Now that one is one I actually really enjoy, but if you don't have the Ridgeway's Pride, you could use 4 pieces of Ongoing Directive, a Badger Tough backpack with Creeping Death, and the Vile Mask. Moving on to normal targeted loot, we got gloves of Federal Emergency Bunker. While you can farm for the contractor's gloves, since Petrov seems to be in the Dark Zone South today, so this might be a good alternative for you. That gives you 8% damage to armor, and it's great if you stack damage to armor with 2 pieces of Walker Harrison Co., the Lady Death, or any assault rifle. And of course, it works really well on any LMG build for sure. Otherwise, you can go for the BTSU gloves, which grants overcharge to everyone in your team that is at skill tier 6, so keep that in mind as well. But moving on to next targeted loot, we got assault rifles over here at Foggy Bottom. Now, there's 2 exotic assault rifles in this game, 3 total, but the Eagle Bear is a Dark Hours raid exclusive. So the other 2 is the Chameleon with Adaptive Instincts and the Capacitor with Capacitance on it. Now, both of those are extremely good DPS weapons, actually, and the Capacitor is really almost mandatory for any skill damage build. It's going to get you up to 60% extra skill damage and 7.5% weapon damage per skill tier, meaning 6 skill tiers is going to give you like 45% weapon damage. Now, for the named assault rifles, I'd recommend the new Test Subject with Perfectly in Sync. That one's really good. The Mechanical Animal of Future Perfection, the Burnout named FAMAS, and the Maniac named Military AKM. Next up, we got rifles over here at Constitutional Hall. Now, there's 2 exotics, Merciless and Diamondback, both of which I don't really recommend. The Merciless, you usually need braced or, help from 3-piece strikers for the rate of fire and weapon handling increase. Or, like I said, you use braced or weapon handling all over your gear. Diamondback hits pretty hard, and it's good in PvP as well, but it only has 5 rounds. Now, what I do recommend is some named rifles like the Surge with Perfect Spike and the Baker's Dozen with Perfect Lucky Shot. Those are the 2 that you can farm inside of the Light Zone. Now, in the Dark Zone, you could farm for the Harmony because that's a Dark Zone exclusive, but you cannot get the Harmony to drop from an NPC in rifle targeted loot outside of the Dark Zone. Next up, we got holsters at DCD HQ, and now there's 3 exotic holsters you could farm for now. The new WAVEFORM holster, which is highly recommended on my new skill build. I'll put in the top right card now, which is going to give you up to 30% skill damage every like 10 seconds, and then it alternates between each skill, kind of like Kinetic Momentum, but giving you the same as Kinetic Momentum actually. And then of course you have the Dodge City holster for DPS builds, headshot damage builds, and pistol builds, and the Imperial Dynasty holster as well for skill damage and status effects. And of course, you can get a named holster inside the Light Zone. That's the Forge, and it's going to give you 50% shield health, so an extra skill tier worth of shield health to your shield. Now, there's only 2 more things I'm going to go over. We got Hana Yu at the Pentagon. You can farm the Force Multiplier backpack with Perfect Combined Arms. Now, I know the Pentagon isn't super great mission to farm over and over, but remember, we have that global event, the Golden Bullet. So if any mission is extremely easy with this global directive or this global event, so I'd highly recommend doing that and farming for it. An extra 30% skill damage every 3 seconds you land a shot. Definitely worth using with a Harmony or Capacitor. And last but not least, we got Empress now at DARPA. So remember, it gives you, at 3 pieces, you get 10% skill efficiency. And 10% skill efficiency is 10% skill repair, skill damage, skill haste, skill duration, and even 10% status effects as well. Otherwise, guys, that's all I could recommend for the west side. Let's go check out what we got on the east side now. Alright, agents, over here on the east side, targeted loot highlights, starting off with the gear sets. We got Strikers at Jefferson Plaza. Like I always say, just 3 pieces is the max I would ever use for increased rate of fire and weapon handling on an LMG build, like especially one with Perfect Frenzy, or of course you could use it with a Merciless. Otherwise, I do not recommend going with 4 pieces. Maybe you could do it with a shotgun, but I really don't recommend it. We also got Hardwired over here at East Mall. Now, you can use the 3-piece Hardwired, 2-piece Hana Yu, 1-piece Wyvernware with Glass Cannon or Kinetic Momentum on the chest piece, and the Force Multiplier backpack with Perfect Combined Arms. But I highly just recommend my skill damage build now, and it's not because I'm just trying to plug in my build constantly. It's because it does a lot more damage than that one, but that one used to be the one that did the most damage. Now it's 3-piece Empress, the Waveform, 2-piece Hana Yu, the Capacitor, Assault Rifle, the Harmony is a secondary, and the Force Multiplier backpack with Perfect Combined Arms. Next up, we got Future Initiative at Jefferson Trade Center. Great healer build, but remember, just like Foundry Bulwark, chest and backpack are Iron Horse raid exclusives. So in lieu of that, I would use an Alp Summit chest piece and backpack with Safeguard on the backpack and Empathetic Resolve on the chest piece. And then probably one of my favorite gear sets at Grand Washington Hotel is True Patriot. I'll put one of my favorite True Patriot builds on the top right card now. One of my favorite SMG builds as well. So that's 4 pieces of True Patriot, the Memento backpack, and a Sokol of chest piece with Intimidate. That shreds through content, keeps you alive and well, and of course it works solo and in group, and it works all the way up to Legendary Solo Summit. Now moving on to normal target loot, we got masks at Downtown East. There's 2 exotic masks you could farm for. The Coyotes mask, of course that's for DPS builds, and then of course the Vial mask, which is really great for DPS and even skill, damage and status effects as well. And by DPS, I mean that ongoing directive DPS build. I don't know any other DPS version of it. And then, of course, you can farm for the Punch Drunk mask with 20% headshot damage baked into it, but I highly just recommend farming Douglas and Harding. You're more likely to get it, so you'll yield better results farming the brand, not the type. Next up, we got knee pads at District Union Arena. 2 exotic knee pads you could farm for, so that's Ninja Bike Messenger knee pads and Sawyer's knee pads. Ninja Bike being for DPS, especially SMGs and running and gunning builds. And then for Sawyer's, definitely for sitting still, like sniper rifle builds or skill damage builds, because, you have to sit still to get the talented work. Now we got LMGs at Federal Triangle area. 2 exotic LMGs you could farm for here today. That's of course going to be the Bullet King and the Pestilence. The Bullet King has a lower base damage, but you never have to reload. And the Pestilence, you can get the damage tick to over 1 million. But of course, it does have a really slow reload. 6 seconds, I believe it takes to reload. So you have to put some weapon handling or use Braces, the chest talent, if you're not okay with that. As far as named LMGs go, there's a bunch in the bottom left overlay. Carnage with Perfect Sadist and the new Reliable Perfectly Optimized would definitely be my favorites. Next up, we got shotguns at Capitol Building Stronghold. So, of course, we got 2 exotic shotguns now. The Sweet Dreams with the Sandman talent and the Scorpio with Septic Shock, I believe it's called. Now, the Scorpio just absolutely overshadows the Sweet Dreams. It's actually a useful shotgun to use for DPS builds. Sweet Dreams is more for a skill damage build, where you could just one-hit kill any red or purple barred enemy every 15 seconds, while the Scorpio, you could just stun lock enemies with all sorts of status effects. And if you end up shooting them like more than 8 times or something like that, you end up giving them a 20% damage debuff to where you and all your teammates deal 20% more damage to that target. It's amazing. It's really, really good for the Hunter's Fury build I've mentioned so many times in these videos. Otherwise, I would go with the 3 best shotguns in the game. That's the MOP with 10% armor on kill, the Custom M870, and the Marine Super 90 with close and personal rolled on them. Last 2 I'm going to mention is Badger Tough at Southwest. You could farm the 0F's chest piece with Perfect Unbreakable, and Perfect Unbreakable is a very good talent for DPS hybrids. And lastly, we got MMRs at Space Administration HQ. 2 exotic MMRs in this game, the Mantis and the Nemesis, but the Nemesis is a quest-only exotic, so keep in mind, you're going to have to craft it first from the quest or have a teammate drop it for you. Otherwise, the Mantis you could just straight up farm for, and it's the go-to, MMR to use with a Headhunter headshot damage build. For named MMRs, I go with the White Death, and then of course Echem's Long Stick with Perfect Ranger. Otherwise, that's all I'm going to mention for Eastside. Let's go check out what we got on the New York City target loot now. Alright agents, last but not least, we got New York City target loot highlights, and we have no gear set, so let's just get started with Walker Harrison Co. at Wall Street. So of course, this is where you could farm for the Chainkiller chest piece with Perfect Headhunter. Anything that where you have a headshot damage build, always use the Chainkiller chest piece. You could of course use Brace, but I just don't really even recommend that. Next up, we got Overlord at Pathway Park. This is where you can farm for those Fox's Prayer knee pads with 8% damage to targets out of cover. They're amazing, knee pads to have. They used to be best in slot when they had like 20% damage to targets out of cover or something like that, but they're still really good, so keep that in mind. It's multiplicative damage. You definitely want a good rolled pair with weapon damage that damages targets out of cover and crit hit chance or crit hit damage. Next up, we got submachine guns over here at the Stranded Tanker area. There's 3 exotics, Lady Death, of course the Backfire, and the Chatterbox. All 3 are worth farming for, but the Chatterbox is a quest only, so you could follow this quick little 5-minute video I'll put in the top right card now to get the Chatterbox fairly quickly. Otherwise, remember the Dark Winter and the Apartment are Dark Zone exclusives, so you cannot farm for them where they drop on it from an NPC outside of the Dark Zone. What I do recommend in lieu of that for named SMGs would be the Safety Distance with Perfect Outsider and the Grudge with Perfect Vindictive. Both of those are really good SMGs that are named that drop outside of the Dark Zone. Last but not least, we got Providence Defense at Civic Center. This is where you could farm for the Sacrifice with Perfect Glass Cannon, which goes really well on DPS builds and even skill damage builds. So keep that in mind when you're running Technician. It gives you a free skill tier, so you could use the Sacrifice with weapon damage, and then put skill damage and skill haste on it if you get lucky enough to have a good roll like that. But yeah, otherwise, that's really all I'm going to recommend over here in the New York City target loot area. Alright, agents, well, that was the targeted loot for today. Thank you so much for watching, and be sure to subscribe, like, and share if you enjoyed my content. It helps me out, and it lets you guys know every day that I post. If you'd like to become a member, you can click the join button below for exclusive perks and extra support, and shout out and thank you to all 5 of my members. I appreciate what you do to help me out. Everything else will be in the video description and comment, pin comment below, like Shadow Gaming merchandise, Storyfire, BitChute, every little thing you can do to support me or get help yourself, like, all the vendor resets and all that stuff I have in the video description of every video. But anyway, guys, take care and be sure to stay tuned for more daily Division 2 content. This is Agent Shadow signing off. I will see you in the next video. Take care, agents.